Hey everyone, I'm Dan from JazzComposersPresent.com, an online space where composers, musicians, and listeners come together to celebrate the music we love. I'm joined today by Emilio Solla, Latin Grammy winning and Grammy nominated composer, arranger, pianist, and educator. Emilio's here to show us how to use thematic material to generate counter-melodies.
When we compose, we are also arranging our own composition, right? It's pretty much what we do from one or two ideas, right? Like then we become arrangers of something that is still not invented, that hasn't been invented. But when we arrange, of course, we have an original material that we try to be loyal to. And one way in which we can do that is, of course, reusing, thinking of ways, smart ways and creative ways of grabbing what we already have in the composition, being a strong melodic material, a strong harmonic material, sometimes the form, sometimes the texture, anything that is very important in the original composition that we're working on, and see how we can, stretch it, how we can, squeeze it to get material juice out of it, if I can use that expression, and so that we can start decorating and we can start painting in the background, in the middle ground, sometimes that composition, the main thematic material, with elements that belong already, that relate somehow to that composition. And of course, the melody is something that we normally consider as a very important. Many times, what we remember the most of what makes any tune, jazz or not jazz, the most recognizable element. What I brought for you today is an example, is a track that we did. That is, of course, one of the most emblematic Chick Corea tunes, which is Spain. I want to point you to some very important material that I decided to use and to be present around in all the arrangement. And that was the melody of the Concerto de Aranjuez by Joaquin Rodrigo, composed in 1939. Spain from Chick Corea is a response, kind of his interpretation of his homage to Joaquin Rodrigo and that concerto. The way we know this is because, Chick Corea, the first recording that he did of Spain, he starts by playing the theme by the Concerto de Aranjuez by Joaquin Rodrigo in the Fender Rhodes. I think it's light as a feather. For example, if you look at the last two bars, there's a very important, nod to the concerto there. Ta-di-dum, ta-do-da-di-da-do-da-di-dum, pa-do-da-di. And now at the end, and that's exactly how Chick finishes Spain, right? He's using exactly those last two bars of the Concerto Aranjuez to finish Spain. And there's also another important similarity, in my opinion. If we check on the intervals, this is a very step motion melody, right? There's no lips at all. And the whole melody here in the Concerto de Aranjuez, this first part is built with seconds and thirds, right? Ta-di-dum, ta-da-da-di-da-da-da-di-dum, pa-do-da-di-da-da. That's the first third that shows up. The rest of the thing is just, little chunks of the scale, of the B minor scale, up and down. So it's a very step-wise, step motion melody, and that's exactly what happens in Spain as well. If you remember the A section, the most important part of the melody in Spain, it's exactly the same. So I came to the conclusion that this material and this idea of the seconds and the thirds was very important. So I decided also to start with this orchestra arrangement by, I was thinking of it, should we quote Rodrigo or not? But we said, yeah, it's an orchestra, let's homage a little bit Rodrigo as well, and let's homage Chick Corea by, quoting also the Concerto de Aranjuez by Joaquin Rodrigo. Instead of using the English horn that Rodrigo uses at the beginning of this second movement of the concerto to sing out the melody while the guitar plays the accompaniment, I decided to use one cello in the orchestra and to bring the melody octave down. But if you take a look at the accompaniment of that, I'm creating a texture with the harp and the woodwinds. Since I want the cello to sing the melody alone in the kind of the lower octave, I clean the strings. I'm not using any other strings, and I'm accompanying the cello with just woodwinds and the harp, so as to create help that melody to cut through the texture, but accompanying that melody with very different sounds, like creating a different timbre for the accompaniment. So I'm bringing in Paquito with the main melody of Spain, but I decided to put it into this kind of setting, to this kind of atmosphere with the slow movement. So I'm bringing down the tempo of the Corea melody and putting it inside as a continuation of that part of the Concierto de Aranjuez. And so we'll hear Paquito playing that melody in the clarinet. And if we get to the slide number 2, let me show you how I'm reusing, responding to the melody of Spain by using some elements that we just heard in the cello and in that first part of the melody of Rodrigo. For example, we have the clarinet on top, and I'm responding it with 2 trumpets that do parallel thirds. Fa, mi, fa, fa, sol, la, si, la, sol, fa, sol, la, fa. So we're getting a response a little bit down of the pitch of the clarinet with those 2 trumpets. And then the melody goes on. And now I have a flute on top of the clarinet, a flute alone playing. That is also a motif, that shows up in the Concerto de Aranjuez. And then I have Paquito again, and now I'm responding in the low range with the cellos, a section of the cellos, and 1 clarinet. It's a very good, very nice pairing, responding to that at the end of that second line. Creating these responses again to the main melody of Spain by using the material of the Joaquin Rodrigo concerto. The last part after Paquito solo, I'm building with some background, and boom, big time. We bring back the melody with all the strings unison, Beethoven style, big unison, octaves, all the strings, all the woodwinds, and I'm having all the brass to answer to that. And we hear this response here, which, as you see in the melody, so I'm using some rhythmic variations and changes on, again, that melody from Rodrigo. What interests us here is the melody, the counter melody to the main melody, and see how now for the first time I'm harmonizing that heavily with harmonic density number 6, which makes sense because this is really the peak of the tune. We bring back the main tune after the solo, and we are, commenting on it and bringing back this beautiful counterpoint by putting, all the hammer down and orchestrating it heavily. I hope that this maybe triggers some ideas for you. Remember, when you compose, you arrange as well. So don't strive, don't go crazy about finding always that the pencil will come up with something great. Maybe you already have a lot of great things in the stuff that you already composed in the first few bars, or anywhere in the piece. Try to find which of those motifs, which of those lines are strong, which are representative of the composition, and see how you can expand them and create the surrounding material, the background and the middle ground material, just with variations of that material. So hope that idea is helpful to everybody, and hope to see you all very soon. Have a good one.
Thanks for watching today's mini lesson. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos down below. To watch our full-length events and participate in live Q&As with our presenting artists, head to jazzcomposerspresent.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.